Lead together, embrace change, enhance everyone's journey. The 3 core principles of SmartStop, a leader in self-storage real estate across North America, reinforce why we're proud to bring you SheEO Lead-In, the podcast featuring curated conversations with powerful women sharing their impactful wisdom. It's a self-knowledge, self-discovery, and self-preneurship audio storage vault created by and for women. SmartStop's presentation of SheEO Lead-In begins right now.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Leading-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO Lead-In. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. Today we're here with Shelly Zimmerman, the former chief of police for the city of San Diego. How are you today?
Oh, fantastic. And thank you very much for having me on your podcast here.
Yeah, very excited to hear your story because there are a lot of interesting parts of it. What actually made you want to be in law enforcement in the first place, and how did you get there?
Well, I'll tell you, thanks for asking that. So, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. So how does someone who grows up in Cleveland, Ohio, end up being the chief of police of the San Diego Police Department? Well, I'll tell you is that, I believe that the journey through life is rarely a straight line. There are going to be many twists and turns, and I believe you should embrace those twists and turns because they could lead you to places you never imagined were possible. A football game changed my life.
A football game?
Yeah, so here's the story. So when I was a junior at the Ohio State University, my boyfriend and I and a few other friends, we came to California to watch Ohio State versus USC in the 1980 Rose Bowl. I will tell you is that Ohio State lost that game in the national championship by 1 point when Charles White scored a touchdown with 23 seconds to go. A couple more years, I'll be over it. But I guess you could say I am a product of tourism because I used to see Joan Embry from our San Diego Zoo on the Johnny Carson show. Wow. Growing up in Cleveland. And I thought, we don't have to be back to Ohio State for a few days. Let's rent a car and let's go to this incredible zoo. So that's what we did. And we went to this, San Diego Zoo, obviously amazing. Went to some of the most beautiful beaches in the world right here in San Diego. And I made a decision right then and there that I had shoveled my last driveway. So returned to Ohio State, graduated, and jumped on a plane with $200 in my pocket, one suitcase on my guitar. When I got off the plane in San Diego, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a job. I didn't even have a place to stay. And I used to tell people, don't worry, as your chief of police, I plan much better now.
Yeah, that's good. My gosh.
So my dad was a trial attorney in Cleveland, and I always thought that I would go to law school and follow in his footsteps. And that's what I still thought what I would do now out here in San Diego. Now, I put myself through Ohio State, so I knew I was going to have to put myself through law school. And I saw that the San Diego Police Department was hiring. So I thought, wow, what better way to help pay for law school? I'll become a San Diego police officer and, and then, work and then, get money and then be able to go to law school. But from day one, I fell in love with being a San Diego police officer, never went to law school, and 35 years later, I retired as the chief. Now, I will tell you, Rebecca, that there are thousands of reasons why I loved being a San Diego police officer, but I'll give you one right now. Is that multiple times a day, you will have the honor and the privilege to help someone, and usually at their worst possible moment.
But how did you even just say, oh, that seems like a great career and I'm going to keep staying in it and I'm going to, I mean, I find it fascinating because it's not generally a woman-dominated career. So what made you get the bug to say, you know what, I need to do this?
Well, like I said, at first, I joined because, I'm all about helping people, all about being, a servant leader. And it was just amazing how, the pride of being a San Diego police officer and the training and what they instill in you about going out and helping our public. And I thought, wow, I get to do this, what a privilege, multiple times a day. The San Diego Police Department gets on average about 1.4 million calls into their communication center every year. And, let's face it, nobody calls for good things, right? No, I've never had a call that someone said, hey, my child made honor roll, why don't you come on over and we're going to celebrate and cut the cake. Now we get calls that somebody has been robbed, burglarized, assaulted, gunfire, we don't get good calls, right? So when we respond to these calls from our public, we get to help. And, so that's, from day one, I was hooked. I said, this is what I want to do.
Wow. So you just got the bug. That's pretty cool. So I'm sure you've had a lot of crazy things happen. I think that the change in law enforcement from when you first joined to now is very different. What could you share with us on that?
Yeah, no, definitely different. The mission is still the same, to go out and help, keep our community safe, keep our officers safe. But yeah, it's different for a lot of different reasons. And I think, quite frankly, technology and social media has changed a lot of it. And let me give an example about technology. When I first came on the department, I carried a pocket full of dimes and then later quarters, and often used payphones to obtain information.
Wow.
And so, when cell phones replaced pagers and computers became a standard piece of equipment inside a patrol car, police officers became more efficient and more effective in serving our communities. And, I will tell you is that if you would have told me when I first came on the police department in 1982 that years later, as the chief of police, that I would have a unit to connect with our community via social media or to, dispel things that were out there that were not accurate via social media, here's what I would have said. What's social media?
Right.
Because it didn't exist. And so, again, it has to do with whatever was the best practice, in the past is not today. I often say is what the best practice was 5 years ago is not today, and what is regarded as the best practice today is not going to be 5 years from now. So you have to continue to evolve, and certainly, as I said, the general mission of policing is always going to be the same, but how we go about it with technology and social media and video. We were the first major city at the time and police department to deploy body cameras.
Right. And that's a game changer. I mean, it really has changed so much in fighting crime as far as the criminals, but also for the officers.
Yeah. And so, thanks for, 100% agree. Thanks for saying that. Is that, it's kind of an interesting story is that, we had a few officers about the time that I became chief that weren't doing the right thing, okay? And we were holding them accountable. But even just a few officers can, hurt the trust that we enjoy with our communities.
Right.
And so I wanted body cameras, and Mayor Faulkner agreed, City Council agreed, and it didn't come cheaply. It was several $1 million. But I'll never forget this, is that I went to the unit that was going to be the one that were going to implement the body-worn camera program. And I said, go out and see what other large departments have as far as a policy, because, you need a strong policy with any type of equipment like that. And and go ahead and obtain it for my review. And I remember they came back a couple of weeks later and said, you know what, Chief, there's nothing out there.
Right. You were groundbreaking on this.
We were. There were some smaller departments that had deployed body cameras for quite some time, but we were going to be the largest city and department at the time to do this. And I will tell you, I had several people, both inside and outside my department, that said, don't do this. Don't be the first one. If you're not perfect on day one, the department is going to be, criticized endlessly. And here was my response. We're not going to be perfect on day one.
Right.
We're not going to be perfect on day 30. We may never reach perfection, but we're definitely going to make progress. And what was interesting, too, is that, I always had an open door policy. And, there was officers, some that came and said, Chief, don't you trust us? Why are you putting a camera on us? And I said, of course I trust you. That's exactly why I'm putting a camera on you. I said, there's no doubt in my mind that 99.99% of the officers are every single day are doing their job, phenomenally with courage and dedication and commitment and honor. And the camera was going to show that. And quite frankly, the very few that weren't doing that, we want to know about that too.
So I want to ask about gender just a little bit. So you're the first woman to serve as chief in San Diego.
Correct.
That's a woman. So have you ever felt that you've gotten pushback, that there was an issue with that some of the men didn't look at you like maybe you were the chief, or talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I would tell you is that I'm not naive enough to think that everyone had my same experience as a woman. But, the San Diego Police Department, I'm proud to say, has always been a very progressive police department.
Yeah.
If you can do the job, you get to do the job. So I did not feel that I had any pushback whatsoever.
Well, it's probably because you were also with the organization for so long.
That could be, but again, I'm not naive enough to think that everybody had that same experience as a woman on our department or other departments. But, San Diego PD is just, I'm proud to say, has always been progressive. And, quite frankly, I stood on the shoulder of giants, of other women that were on our department that really trailblazed. And because of them, I was able to obtain whatever I obtained. But nobody does anything by themselves. And, what's interesting is that I had been on the department about 14 years, back working narcotics, undercover, and it was a male lieutenant at the time in charge of the narcotics unit that came to me and said, "Hey, Zimmerman, you've been eligible to take the sergeant's test for many times now. You need to take it this time." And I'm like, well, why would I do that? I'm undercover, having a great time, I believe making our city that much safer. And here's what he said to me, which changed everything. He said, "No, I've been watching you, and you love to teach. When we have younger officers that come and work with us in narcotics, is that you take them under your wing and you show them how to do surveillance or to write a search warrant, to get informants or any of that." And he says, "You just love the teaching aspect of it. And imagine how much more you can do and be a teacher and show the right way if you became a sergeant." And I remember thinking to myself, that's what gave me pause. And that was really the first time that I started to really seriously think about it. And I studied and did well on the test, did well in the interview, and next thing you know, I'm a sergeant. And that really started the, on the way to promotions to chief.
So let's talk about mentors, because it seems to me that was probably an encouragement that you really needed so you could see in yourself what maybe others already saw.
That is completely true. And I think that's so important is that, again, this happened to be a male lieutenant, but that's, some of the things that I believe in is that it takes everyone, male, female on an department. We need to go find individuals that, for promotion or for other assignments that they may not have even done themselves or even thought about themselves. And I think that's important to reach out to those individuals. And it could be on the police department or in any organization, is to go out there And, there's just great talent often within your organization. And so sometimes they just need a little pestering, a little nudge, because they may not realize something about themselves that other people have seen.
Yeah, let's pick up on that in just a minute. We're going to take a quick smart stop and hear about our amazing sponsor.
SmartStop knows the winning connection is when we elevate success together. SmartStop Self Storage, a California company with nearly 200 properties and over 15 million square feet of rentable storage in the US and Canada, is committed to positively impacting the communities we serve on the national and local level. By aligning our core principles of leading together, embracing change, and enhancing everyone's journey with local initiatives focused on education, health, and social welfare, we all elevate together. Through financial and strategic partnerships with nonprofits and prestigious organizations such as Cloudcast Media, Arrow McLaren IndyCar, Breast Cancer Research Foundation, Wounded Warrior Project, USC Athletics, the Brampton Steelheads, MMA fighters and boxers, and other unique athletes, we aim to foster a sense of unity and pride within the communities we serve, creating a shared identity and generating a positive atmosphere. To learn more about our core values, our locations, and career opportunities, please visit us at smartstopselfstorage.com. SmartStop, elevating success together.
Don't you think, too, that it's good to have both men and women at a table in leadership? I think that there are different aspects that everyone has that's a little bit different, and I think that's how you make a great team.
Oh, 100%. I think you talk about diversity. You want to get diversity of opinion, and certainly having women and men that are both there. And we look at things differently. That's our upbringing and everything else, and we look at things differently. So I think that's incredibly important. It's sometimes you hear, as a woman you need to go out there and find other women. I'm like, we all have that responsibility to find the best person, a woman or a man.
Right.
You want to make the organization better. It takes everyone.
Qualified.
Correct.
Qualified. Okay, so you have a sign on your desk. Could you tell us what that is and what it means to you?
Sure. So when I became chief, I put a sign on my desk that said this: "Bad news welcomed here." And I believe that as the chief of police or a leader of any organization, that you have to create a culture where your personnel, who are your most important resource, by the way, feel comfortable to tell you things that are not working or ways that we can improve what is already going on. And if you don't do that, I think that, quite frankly, that you're a failure as a leader.
So I have a question. When you had that sign up at first, were people saying, "I don't know what that means. What does that mean?" Or I'm not comfortable in talking to you right at first. I mean, what were they thinking when they first saw that?
Well, again, I had been on the department for a long time, for many, many years. So I think people knew my style is that, there's a saying, leadership by walking around, which I believe in that. Mm-hmm. So I would go out often and ask questions. I did that, throughout my entire career. But by putting that sign on the desk, and to answer your question directly, is that, did that solve every problem? Or no, of course not. So
but it was a dialogue. It was an open dialogue.
Exactly. So when in the open door policy and someone would walk in, nobody hesitates to tell you good news, right? They can't wait to tell you good news.
Yeah.
But there's a huge hesitation to tell you bad news. And I will tell you this, is that people will, when you create that culture, they will start to tell you bad news. And the first time that they do that, never, and I mean never, bite their head off, because they will never come again. And you have to understand is that when they tell you this, they have literally just brought you a gift of that bad news, a gift of improvement. Okay?
An opportunity.
Yeah, with every challenge comes an opportunity. Yep. And here's something else too, though. Just because the sign was on the desk, but I went out and talked to people and found things too. So I would, I was kind of known for my pop-ins. That might be on a Sunday afternoon at some lineup at one of the divisions, or even a graveyard shift. I was just kind of known for my pop-ins and just talking with people. And then, once you start asking questions, hey, how are things going? And, and you get past the pleasantries and you really drill down into how we can do things better or what's not going well. That's where the magic happens, because we all have that buy-in and we all want to get better to serve, our community.
So your pop-ins, that is an interesting thing. I would feel like that most of the officers or the lieutenant sergeants, everyone would probably think, when is she coming? She might show up at any time. I think kind of keeping them guessing, that's kind of interesting. Showing up on the weekends and just popping in. I love that.
And, I did it because I cared. And, look, being a police officer is a very difficult job, okay? You respond to the myriad of societal challenges, everything, it's like gets put onto a police officer. And, so I care about them. I care about, their safety, care about their mental health. How can you take care of the rest of the community if we can't take care of our own personnel?
Right.
Professional staff, too, our dispatchers and lab personnel and so many others. It really is the team effort, and we all have to work together. And so, plus, I love just being a police officer. Like I said, loved working patrol, loved being a detective, loved working, many different assignments. And so that gave me an opportunity too to, talk about different cases, to talk about calls that the officers, went on. Number one, I cared. And number two, I was just very interested in it.
How do you find balance in all of that with home and with work?
Is there a way? Probably something that I absolutely failed on was the balance.
Sometimes, probably.
Yeah, it was, there being the chief of police is 80, 90-hour work week, and I would tell you when that phone rings at, midnight or 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, it's never good news, okay? Right. Never good news. But, again, that's the... I didn't quite find the balance of that with the home life and then work. But then again, if you love what you do, as the saying goes, you never work a day in your life. And so I loved being a San Diego police officer. It was such an honor and privilege to be the chief of police. And so, I don't find that it was, that I missed out on anything. But I do believe, again, in the wellness. And so, again, I would get up and go for a run on the beach or ride my bicycle, whenever I could. And I believed in the physical fitness of law enforcement too, because, it's going to help you cope with everything that officers deal with.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what happened with technology and how that changed, but then also how things changed with some of the laws that were softened, I would say, with like Prop 46 and all that, and some of the challenges that it created and how that made law enforcement change.
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is Proposition 47, which was
47,
passed back in 2014. And I would tell you, I opposed that even back in 2014. Yeah. It might have been well-intentioned, but there were so many flaws in it. And just for anybody who's listening to this, out in California, Proposition 47, they lowered theft to... if you stole under $950, that it would be a misdemeanor, but every single time. So that meant if you went in and stole under $950, the first time it got caught, it was a misdemeanor. The 30th time, it was a misdemeanor. The 100th time, it was a misdemeanor. So you start seeing these serial thieves that continue to do that, and no penalties, really, no penalties. And so the other part was with the drugs. All right. And that for hard drugs, it's like if you were in possession of cocaine or methamphetamine, heroin, and you were arrested for that, is that you, on this felony, so it was a felony, is that you would have an offer to go to drug court. And I spoke at drug court graduations, and there were story after story how that arrest and that felony hanging over your head was the catalyst, and the intervention that was needed, and the incentive for that person to get their life back on track. Unfortunately, with Proposition 47, it took all of that away. Drug courts literally dried up because there was no more incentive to do it because it was a misdemeanor every single time, no felony. So I've been very involved in my retirement from the police department in collecting the signatures, which we had over 900,000 signatures to place what the ballot initiative now number is Proposition 36. And so Proposition 36 now is going to increase those penalties again, and to for drug possession of these hard drugs, and made fentanyl. We've had how many overdose deaths, which is just an incredible tragedy. And it's going to make fentanyl now a hard drug, and also give warning that if you're selling these hard drugs, you're selling this fentanyl, and someone dies, that you can be held accountable for their death. And so again, it puts in a mandated treatment to get people for their lives back together. And same thing with theft again, if you steal on the third offense then you will be held accountable for a felony. So it puts increased penalties back for possession of hard drugs, selling of fentanyl, and then also for the serial thieves and organized retail theft. And so I'm just going to say it. I encourage everyone to look into it, but we need to change that, and that would be a yes vote on Prop 36.
So do you think that's going to help at all with the homeless situation?
Yes, definitely. I would tell you is that, the increase in homelessness, if you go back to when this passed, Proposition 47, 10 years ago, there's a direct correlation, with the increase in homelessness. So many of our homeless have mental health, drug addiction issues, and I will tell you, it's all intertwined. If you want to talk a little bit about homelessness too, is that, I've spent a lot of time as a police officer, dealing with our homeless population, and still do. Matter of fact, I still go out and talk to a lot of the homeless individuals. And, I talk about it in three ways. Now, everybody has their own individual story, how they became homeless, but I think it generally falls into this: the have-nots, can-nots, and the will-nots. The have-nots are individuals that they just don't have enough. Maybe they had a medical issue. Maybe, their rent increased. Maybe they lost their job, and they just don't have enough. And as a society, I believe that we have to do everything that we can to help the have-nots. And then you have the can-nots, and that is the largest percentage of the homeless population that's out there, in my opinion. And those are individuals that just cannot function. They cannot function because of their drug addiction and or mental health issues. And I believe that as a society, we must intervene for their own health, safety, and welfare, and the health, safety, and welfare of the public at large.
Right.
And then the last category is the will-nots, and those are individuals that just don't believe that the rule of law applies to them. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want, and we must enforce the rule of law onto these individuals.
So moving forward, we changed the laws. Do you think there will be a change, though, as far as getting people off the streets, being able to, definitely, I think if you look back historically, it does repeat itself. When you change things and you think you're going to have a different outcome because we're being what some people call compassionate, allowing people to stay on the streets. In my opinion, that's not really compassionate. It really is very hurtful to see people living like that. Do you think that we will be able to make a significant difference?
Absolutely. When Proposition 36 passes, and it looks like it's going to, again, almost a million people, signed to put it on. People have had enough. You can't even walk into a CVS store in 5 minutes because you have to get somebody to open up locked.
Get your shaving blades.
A bar of soap or whatever you need real quick.
Yeah.
So I really think that it will. And, you have to hold people accountable. Lowering crimes without holding people accountable does not work for so-called lesser crime, nor would it work for, more serious crime. And I will tell you, people that commit more serious crime also commit lesser crime too. And so it is, look how many stores that have closed. Look how many overdose deaths. You're right. There's nothing
I think it's at the tipping point. I really do. I think it's at the tipping point.
Yeah.
So consulting, you do a lot of consulting, don't you?
I do. Like in my retirement, I've done, quite a bit of consulting, teaching.
You're not retired.
I try to keep it to 40 hours a week. And people laugh and say, wait a minute, that's a full-time job. And I say, nah, when you've been the chief of police working an 80 to 90-hour work week, 40 hour work week is an appetizer. But a lot of consulting on public safety topics, leadership. I guest lecture a lot at different colleges for different courses. I'm on several different boards, which I enjoy them all. One of them, Sports San Diego, bringing sports tourism here to San Diego. We'll have the Rady's Children Invitational coming up with, the college teams for basketball over Thanksgiving. Then we go right into the Holiday Bowl. But we have, soccer teams and baseball and, rugby that's been up. We just had the Cal State games. And so, doing all that is great. I'm involved in the Padres, Pedal for a Cure, Cure Bound, to find a cure for cancer, bicycle ride, but it's also, a 5K run.
You
walk.
You are not retired, Shelly.
Yeah, do a lot of work with the Challenge Athletes Foundation too, to raise money for individuals that need, sports equipment to get them back into the game of life through sports, and several other boards that I'm on too. So very passionate about giving back still. Love San Diego. Although I'm looking forward to, my mom is in Cleveland, going to be 95 in January. Normally don't go back to Cleveland in the winter, but, my brothers and sisters were going to Cleveland in January to help our mom celebrate her 95th birthday. Matter of fact, I was just back last month, and the Padres were playing the Guardians in Cleveland, took mom to the game. She had a great time.
Well, I have all of your life in a nutshell. I actually have something that just popped into my mind, and it's a purpose-filled life. I think you definitely lead a purpose-filled life. Thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for all that you're involved in and the ways you're still serving and staying involved and still caring, even though you're not actually doing a 90-hour a week job. You're doing a 40-hour a week job, but a little bit of everything. And I just want to thank you for your service.
Well,
really appreciate it.
Very kind of you to say. And I'll just, and here if, San Diego Police Department is hiring, and if someone, is looking for, I won't even call it a job, but as a career to get back, to feel good about what you do, I encourage you to become a police officer.
Well, and back to what you originally said, and that is helping people.
100%, being that servant leader.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learned how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
The incredible curated SheEO conversation you just enjoyed was brought to you by SmartStop, a leader in self-storage real estate and a company that upholds its core principles of leading together, embracing change, and enhancing everyone's journey. To learn more about SmartStop, please visit smartstopselfstorage.com.
Cloudcast Media.